The first section in Unit 7 is titled Fractions and Percents. Fractions and percents are going to add to our knowledge of rational and irrational numbers. We're going to add them in being able to identify and compare them, order them, and plot on a number line. Vocabulary term today is a percent. And a percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100. So the example is 80 out of 100, and you can write that as a fraction, 80 over 100. So that's 80%, 80 parts out of 100 parts. So when you write a percent as a fraction, you put it over 100. You'll hear me say that a lot. Put it over 100. And then you always reduce, because it says, that was weird. And then you always reduce because it says simplest form. Oh, I changed slides, that's what I did. So we start with 60 over 100, and then we reduce. Divide the top and the bottom by 10. That's 6 over 10. Now divide the top and the bottom by 2 because they're both even. So 3/5. 60% is 3/5. 12.5. So we can't have a fraction in a fraction. Excuse me. So instead of writing 12.5, we're going to write 12.5 over 100. And we're going to get the decimal out by multiplying the top and the bottom by 10. That's going to move the decimal place one spot to the right. So now we have 125 over 1,000. 25 goes into 125 5 times. 25 goes into 1,000 40 times. 5 and 40 are both divisible by 5. And so that's 1/8. Let me try the next two on your own. So if you want to pause the video here, remember to put it over 100. So 40 over 100. Divide the top and the bottom by 10. That's 4 over 10. Now divide by 2, and you get 2/5. (20 3/4% is 20.75 over 100. Here though we need to move the decimal place 2 spots, so that's the same as multiplying by 100. So it means we have to multiply the bottom by 100 as well. So that's 2,075 over 10,000. And now we need to start reducing. They're both divisible by 25. And you don't have to start with 25. You can start with 5 if you want. It's just going to take you longer to get there. So that's 83, and 10,000, that's 400. And I believe that 83 is prime. It's not divisible by 3 or 2. It's not divisible by 4 or 5. It's not divisible by 6. 7. Not divisible by 8 or 9. So your final answer is 83/400. Again, we have a decimal, so 0.8%, that's 0.8 over 100. Again, we get rid of the decimal by multiplying the top by 10, so we also have to do that to the bottom. That's 8 over 1,000. Both numbers are divisible by 4, and that's 2 over 250. Again, divisible by 2. I guess 8 went into 1,000. That's 1 over 125. Number 6, we have 175%. So this is greater than 100. We should end up with an improper fraction here. Divide the top and the bottom by 5. That's 35 over 20. Both divisible by 5 again. That's 7 over 4. So when the percent, excuse me, is greater than 100, your fraction will be an improper fraction. If you'd like to pause the video and try 7 and 8, they're very similar to 5 and 6. So we have 0.2 over 100. Multiply by 10, top and bottom, to get rid of the decimal. That's 2 over 1,000. They're both divisible by 2, so that's 1 over 500. $150 over 100, both divisible by 50. Again, you might not have recognized that right away. That's 3 over 2. And again, this percent is bigger than 100, so our fraction is improper. Now we're going to go the other way. We're going to write the fraction as a percent. Here you want to make the bottom 100. Now, a lot of these you might know. If you know them, fine, but if you don't know them, you need to show some work. So let's pretend we don't know any of these. So 1/4, I multiply the bottom by 25, so I multiply the top by 25 to keep the fraction the same, equivalent. So that's going to give me 25 over 100. So the answer is 25%. And you do need to write it off to the side. Don't put the percent sign here and then try to circle this. Write it off to the side, and your answer does need a percent sign. So on number 10, we're going to multiply the bottom by 20. So we're going to multiply the top by 20. So that's 120 over 100, or 120%. Improper fraction, so it makes sense that the percent is greater than 100. On number 11, 3/10, a lot of you might know that as 30%, but if you multiply the top and the bottom by 10, you do get 30 over 100, so 30%. Number 12, again, we have an improper fraction. We're going to multiply the top and the bottom by 50. That's 350 over 100, or 350%. Here we're going to look at a situation with quizzes. Oftentimes students, I'll tell a student what they got on a test or a quiz, and they'll say, well, what is that? So here's your chance. 14 out of 16. So you can actually solve this problem a couple different ways, but if we put 14 over 16 as a fraction, and we want to know what her grade was as a percent, we need to multiply the top and the bottom so that we can get 100. The problem is that 16 doesn't go into 100 evenly. So if you do 100 divided by 16 in a calculator, you get 6.25. So we're going to multiply the bottom by 6.25 and the top by 6.25. 14 times 6.25 is 87.5. So her grade as a percent is 87.5%. Now, a lot of this unit we will be doing without a calculator because it's basic computation. However, if you had a calculator here, you could type in 14 divided by 16, and it gives you a decimal, 0.875. We're going to do a lesson in another day about moving the we're going to do a lesson in the next day about moving the decimal place to get from a decimal to a percent. So 0.875 is 87.5%. Here we have, after a survey, Linda discovered that 4 out of every 11 eighth graders at her school play games online. Find the percent of eighth graders that play games online and round to the nearest hundredth. And this is where I'm going to kind of show you the second way to do it when we don't have a calculator. So 4 out of 11, that's going to be something out of 100, right? We can set up a proportion and we can cross multiply. So 11x equals 400, and then we divide by 11, and we're going to get the percent of eighth graders that play games online. You can do long division here. It ends up being a repeating decimal, 36.36 repeating, but it says to round to the nearest hundredth, so 36.36%. What you have to be careful with is on the proportion, we don't have to move the decimal anymore. Doing 4 divided by 11 gives you 0.36 repeating, then you would have to move the decimal. But setting up the proportion, you multiply by that 100 inside the proportion solving steps, and that gives you the correct decimal. In class, we'll work on worksheet 7.1.